Hi, everybody. Are we out there today? If anybody's out there, just comment so I know that you can hear me. Well, it's 9:03, so I'm just going to get started. And um, hi, Ellie. Okay, great. I'm glad someone can hear me. So today the quote is say yes, and the rest will fall into place. I think sometimes we have to take that leap of faith or just decide to stretch ourselves because, and I've had to do that several times in my career. One of the times, um, some of you might know a quilter, famous quilter named Jenny Doan. And how I worked with Missouri Star Quilt Company is she recognized me at a show. She had been following me for some time because of the Live Boldly quilt that caught her eye. And she said my photography on Instagram caught her eye and she started following me, which turned out to be this amazing experience. But that night, she just asked me, to work with her and how would I like to work with her? And I said, any way you want to work together. And I hadn't been in front of a camera. I hadn't been to a big studio. I hadn't done anything remotely close to that. And I just believed that it would all fall into place. And I had to take that leap of faith. It's not in my nature to want to be in front of a camera or speak publicly or do any of those things. It's quite painful. And a lot of times I, have to keep myself from getting sick just from nerves because I just like to blend into the wallpaper. I'm a worker bee by nature. And so being in front of people talking or doing anything like that is very sort of nerve wracking for me. And I would like to say that it gets easier as time goes on. I guess it does get a little bit easier, but all of the nerves are still there, all of that stuff. But I stretch myself and I make myself do it because that's good for us. We have to learn and grow and try new things. And when you do that, new doors open. And if I wanted to get anywhere and have that next door open, which most of the time I don't even know what the next door is, you just keep doing those milestones and they present themselves to you. So that's what I say. Just say yes. Say yes and just know that something good is coming. Good morning, Faith. Ellie Fuller says, we need to see you on a quilting cruise. Rob, Andrew, and Mark just gave us a cruise to remember. Oh, those guys are so fun. I actually haven't met Mark in person, and but obviously, Rob and Andrew came here last August for the Pink Barn open house, and so that was the first time I'd met Andrew in person. But now we're all friends for life. Rob and I have been working together for a few years, and um, such a good group of guys, good hearts, and just fun to be around. I am pretty serious a lot, and I have four boys that are rambunctious and crazy and make you laugh and all of those things. And so sometimes being around Rob and Andrew can be like that. And in fact, they got along with my boys really well. And sometimes I need to have that uh, time to laugh and joke and play because I am so serious most of the time. And I need to have that little break in between because I am such a worker bee by nature. But yes, those guys are fun. I actually am going on a quilting cruise to Alaska with Stitch in Heaven in August, and then I'm that one is booked. But then I booked a Deb Roberts tour for next June of 2025 for Alaska. Um, in Yeah, so and that one has opening. So if you are interested in going on a cruise, I can get you the links if that works for you. So let's see. Yes to Debbie Webb says yes to the cruise, and uh, Ellie says Rob and Andrew speak very highly of you. Yes, they're good guys. We are going to be friends forever. I think that sometimes when you meet people, you just automatically know that um, you were supposed to meet them for a reason. And so that's how I feel about those guys. And uh, for the Alaska cruise, um, and Ellie says, we lived in Alaska for 15 years. I also did a Stitch in Heaven Alaska cruise last summer. You'll love it. So, Ellie, I actually grew up in Alaska and I had a really horrible childhood, pretty tragic, kind of in and out of the system or on and off the system sort of a thing. And just any sort of abuse, dysfunction, neglect, anything we had. And I was the oldest of four siblings. And I remember my brother and I were in a fishing town and we were fishing off the dock. And the first time that we saw a cruise ship come in, we asked some of the locals, fishermen, on, because we were just probably catching our dinner or whatever we were doing. And we were dirty, we were hungry half the time. And, we were the kids that could just leave for 10 or 12 hours during the day and nobody would know what we were doing or, cared. And so we asked some locals, what is that big ship with all the fancy people getting off? And one of the fishermen said, oh, well, people come to Alaska from all over the world. And we looked at each other and said, why? Like, why would anybody come here? Because we grew up there. We didn't think it was anything special. We had a terrible life, there. And so what is funny about that is like now as an adult, and I had been back a couple of times, that I do know how beautiful it is and how much we took for granted about so many different things of it. But when Stitch in Heaven contacted me and asked me to teach on a cruise, they didn't tell me where I would be teaching and or where I would be going. And I said yes, and I signed the contract, and then they just kind of assign you whatever cruise. And so they gave me Alaska, and I just started crying because it was like that full circle moment of I'm not one of the fancy people that get to come off the ship, right? But my gifts and talents are getting me a free cruise to Alaska for that like full circle moment of I get to go back and see with new eyes in a new way all and kind of revisit all of that. I am going to see different parts of Alaska, which I think will be really beautiful and great. And I get to take my husband with me on a vacation, which we have not had for quite some time. And I'm pretty excited about that part alone, just for us to leave some of the home renovations that we've been working on for 2 years and just have several days of nothing. I mean, I'm going to be working, but he gets to rest and do nothing, and he will appreciate that greatly. so, um, so yes, and my child Ellie says, "My childhood sucked to trauma, abandonment, abuse. I know we'd gel. Oh my gosh, my little brother and I also survived alone as kids. We were kindred spirits. Funny how Creator puts us on a path to heal." Yes, absolutely. I believe in that wholly. I think that God just has his hand in everything that I am doing, and he has just blessed me a lot. And Debbie Webb says, "Your childhood made you who you are today. I'm thankful for who you are." And yes, it took, years of therapy to accept that, and to know, like, now I can't even imagine. I mean, I look at myself like 20 years ago and how gnarly I was because I had to unlearn so many things. And that unlearning process, so much happens, and it's great because, really every day I wake up and think, I'm such a miracle. I really am. All of the things that I survived, and that I get to really live a dream life. My big dream was just to grow up and have a normal family. And I think I did that. So now all of this is just really icing. It's just amazing that now I get to be an artist, and I have a dream studio, and um, I married a really kind man that, he is not perfect by any means. He's on the spectrum. He has ADHD. There's a whole lot of things. However, um, I will take all of those because he has such a kind heart, and he's so good to me and his children. So, um, there, I'll clean up his dirty messes, and I will keep instructing him and whatever. I posted a picture on Instagram yesterday because he is very literal about a lot of things. And I think, so I asked him to, we have ruggables, which are those, like, they have mats and then they have covers. Well, we have a dog that's almost 21 years old, and he doesn't make it through the night. So we have to wash those weekly, and it's about 3 loads of laundry, and it's so worth it just to get the ruggables, honestly. Um, and so while I was making lunch, I asked him to take the mats and hang them over the porch railing so that they'll kind of air out, and then we'll wash the cover. And I go out there, and they're just like a crumbled mess hanging on the railing. And I'm like, I think it would be harder to like make that balance than to just hang it properly like a normal person. But he is so literal that he just grabs them and puts them over the railing. So I don't know. It is what it is. Um but he was working on my barn yesterday. He mowed the whole lawn, and there's a whole lot of other things that he did yesterday that I'll just let that go. But it just kind of made me chuckle when I went out there. I was like, how does he do these things? I don't know. It is what it is. So, um, so the other things that I have going on today, I'm heading to Sandpoint, Idaho, and I'm giving a lecture at the Guild meeting tonight. So if you happen to be in the North Idaho area, Spokane area, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, any of that, just take a little drive up to um, Sandpoint, and you can see the lecture and give. I'm giving my trunk show there. Visit the Guild. Sandpoint is a beautiful place. It's really popular. I think stars go there and all that, but um, anybody in our area has just loved Sandpoint forever. My husband grew up in Bonners Ferry, which Sandpoint is the biggest city sort of near that. So Bonners Ferry, Idaho is very north in the panhandle, not very far from the Canadian border. So anyway, Sandpoint has the Walmart and the grocery stores and that sort of thing. But beautiful, beautiful area. It has a lake and resorts and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I'll be teaching a workshop there tomorrow. They chose the pattern Flourish, which is one of my really favorite patterns. Well, I say that about so many of my patterns, which is like a really hard thing. But I just love when I can take a um, traditional design and just put a whole new spin on it. And that's sort of what I did. That has some Dresden plates that are set in a modern setting. And it was just, really one of those fun quilts to do. And it's pretty easy to put together, honestly. But I love it because there's open spaces for quilting. There's a lot of color to play with black and white. It's the normal thing that I do, but it just seems to be one of my favorite um, things to do. So, uh, and then on top of that, I've been working on some little embroideries. These are just tiny, tiny little things, but I'm doing a sew along at the end of summer, and I'm trying to get all of the things ready. I finally have everything cut out. I have half of the blocks ready to demonstrate on camera, and I have um, a little bit more embroidery, and I have some applique. But this quilt will have, I think, every technique, I think, almost in it. But it's so adorable. I'm so excited for it. And um, I'll tell you that it includes a pink barn and chickens, but that's it. That's all I can say, which is not very specific, but it is what it is. So, um, and Ellie says, I'm not familiar with which long arm you have. Which one do you use? I actually have three long arms. Two of them are Anovas, and one is a Gamel with a Statler. So I started with Anova, and it was because my local shop kind of carried those, but I sort of have a mixed review on Anova. There's a few things that I like about the Anova, but I have one Anova that I've never really had any problems with, and the other one that has been a lemon since day one. And they've sent out texts, they've done everything, but I've just sort of been limping along with this lemon, and nobody seemed to like really. I mean, after they sent out texts and stuff, I don't know. There's just I have sort of some hard feelings about that. But my third machine we bought is a Gamel with a Statler, and honestly, I have not had really any problems with that one. And so there's some things that I like about the Innova where I can lift up that layer to see the backing. I like that. You can't do that on the Gamel. Um, but other than that, that's pretty much, you know, I don't know that there's much difference really. I think that as far as which machine to get, I think you need to like really test out some machines, see which ones are comfortable for you, and um, make sure that it's good for an industrial use if you're going to be doing it for a job, because I think some of the machines probably aren't good for industrial use, but I can't say that because I really only have experience with two of the machines, and both of mine have been good for that mostly. So, yeah, that's what I have. And um, I sort of learned how to long arm doing everything free motion. And so I did everything backwards. It was pretty natural for me. So doing computerized edge to edge was the last thing that I added and to my business, which turned out to be a really huge blessing because it did free up time for me to do other things and pursue other things. So pretty much, I think, yeah, we had the within a year and a half after getting the Gamel with a Statler, I started my pattern business, and because that did free up time for me to come up with another income stream. But uh, the long arm quilting was really hard on my body. It's really hard on my body. But because so I invested in that third machine because I had torn my rotator cuff, and I decided not to do any more show quilting because doing all that ruler work, hunched over the machine for long periods of time is really difficult. And so I just decided I couldn't do that anymore because it was, you know, um, so much wear and tear, and I didn't want to have surgery. And once you have one surgery, then, you're just going to continue having to have it because you're not changing anything. So I opted to get the computerized machine to relieve myself of that, not do show quilting because that really was the most wear and tear, and then start the pattern business, and that worked out for me. Thank you, God. It worked out for me. So it has relieved my body. I did stretches and physical therapy and stuff for my shoulder to get it back. I didn't want to have to do surgery. So I was able to do that, which is really great. And Ellie says, I've got a new to me HQ16 workhorse pianos, and free motion is my new jam right now. Yes. Well, that's a good thing. I have not quilted on an HQ, so I don't have any experience with that, but I have some friends that I've run into at shows and stuff that teach the AQ classes and whatnot. So they say that it's a great machine. So good luck, and I hope that it all works out for you. And yes, show quilting is very stressful. And actually, you just don't make any money on it. You can't charge enough for it, really, I think. And I just don't want to spend 80 hours on a quilt anymore. And um, so it worked out well for me, anyways. And it is very stressful. It's stressful enough quilting for other people, honestly. And I've had to turn people down before I even work with them, because if they are just mean online to everybody, then I just don't want to work with them because, it's like they're just never going to be happy. And yeah, so you know, every once in a while there's an issue, um, but yeah, for the most part, I have like the best customers and people that I work with, and it's been such an awesome career for me. And Ellie says, "Who needs unsolicited criticism?" Right. I know, right? Exactly. So, and then people will pay for that criticism, actually. So then it's not unsolicited. So you quilt, do show quilting for someone, and then they pay to have it judged. And so I have gotten a lot of awards, which is really great. And then I've gotten some not so great, comments. But what I've learned about show quilting is that it really is so subjective. You could put one quilt in the show and it's going to get all of these negative marks. You put it in the next show and it takes the top awards. So it really is so subjective and up to a judge who sees it. And the other thing that I really recognize and know, that sometimes a smaller quilt, there's less room for error. So I went to a show, and the quilt that got the top prize was like this really small wall hanging, because there was just no room for error. There was all of these other shows that were, or quilts that were contenders in the same category, but it just, you know, if you're off by a little bit on the binding art, like, it just depends on, what the quilt scores were marked, and if it's that close, then they, like, take the magnifying glass out and, they start looking at every little thing. And so I don't know. It's just, there's so many things that go into it. I went to this big show very early on when I first started quilting, and the quilt that won best of show, everybody kept asking, how did it win? Because when it was hanging up right at eye level for most of us, you could see some puckers of things in the quilting. And we were like, this quilt was competing against like Sharon Chambers and like all of these big names that everybody knows in the quilting world. And what had happened was, when the judges came to judge them, they weren't hanging already. They were on a table, and they had to judge it on the table. Well, when they were looking down on it, is on a big table, and these puckers were in the like kind of middle of the quilt, and they didn't see them. And so then when it was hung and it was like right at eye level for most of us, we were like, this is baffling. And we found that out. So, a good thing to note is, you really just never know. But they should probably judge them after they're hung, quite frankly. So, but everything is run differently, so you just never know. And Ellie says, "Have you ever been to Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show? I go every 4 to 5 years. Love that show. It's the first place I met Rob years ago." So I have never been. I live in the Pacific Northwest, but this is my first year going and I'm teaching 4 classes. I'm super excited because I hear everybody talk about the Sisters Quilt Show and what a huge show, privilege, everything, like, people come from all over the place, and that's the one thing I hear from everybody about Rob Appel is, "Oh, I met Rob at Sisters, however many years ago," and, I think Rob must have met 5,000 people a year at Sisters, and he taught there for many years. I don't know how many people he met, but a lot because that's the number one thing that I hear about, Rob. And so I am really looking forward to it, learning the ropes. It's been a lot of emails back and forth because I think they have so many activities going on, and I always get a little bit nervous to begin with, especially as a teacher because you have to learn the ropes and then get comfortable with things and then figure it out. So I've just sort of um, done kind of the minimal things because I don't want to be overwhelmed. And I feel like I'm already going to be learning so much. And I am super excited to rub elbows with all of those people and meet new people and see this spectacular show. So um, that's what's going on there. And Ellie says, "Oh man, I was going to go next month, but now I have conflicting schedule and will not be going." Geez. Well, hopefully it won't be my last time. We'll see. So it's going to be an amazing time. My only thing is that I hope it's not one of those summers where it's like 115 degrees or, that it rains in the middle of it and then they have to take all the quilts down and, all that. Because when you're teaching, you have like such a small amount of time to go and like actually see the show. So I'm hoping that I'll at least have time to actually kind of experience a little bit of everything. So pretty excited about it. And then so that's happening in July. And then in August is the cruise. And then my first grandbaby is going to be born in August, which we're all very excited about. And then we found out recently that my oldest son is going to have a baby, and his baby is due in December. So my second grandbaby is going to be born this year as well. So as soon as my youngest son found out that him and his wife are pregnant, my oldest son, he's been wanting a baby for a long time. Him and his wife have been married for several years and they decided to start trying for a baby because they want to raise their kids together, which I think is like the sweetest thing ever. They're so excited that these two brothers are going to be raising their kids together. I'm so excited that I get to be a grandmother to two babies in 1 year, and so um, so yes, August is going to be a big month. And then September, I'm teaching at Garden of Quilts in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's actually Lehi, Utah, but I fly into Salt Lake City at Thanksgiving Point. And for those of you who have never been to that show, it's really, I think, the most beautiful show I've ever been to. So that might be another consideration because it's also an outdoor quilt show. And I've been teaching there for several years. It's put on by Riley Blake and Missouri Star. And um, it's set in this beautiful gardens that are just like it undescribable. We have nothing like that around here. So, um, and then they have a week long classes and whatnot for everybody, and they bring in teachers from everywhere, and they have several of the Riley Blake designers, and they give out lots of good prizes and all of those good things. But what it really is an amazing show. And then in October, I will be launching my next line of fabric, which I'm really excited about. And November, I'm flying to Ohio, to Millersburg, Ohio, uh, in Amish country to teach some classes and do some things there at a retreat. And then December, my second grandbaby should be born, and it's Christmas and all of the things that go along with that. So, kind of a packed schedule, but so many things to be thankful and blessed for, um, and in anticipation for all of the great things that are coming our way. It's really such an amazing thing because honestly, I didn't want to move here. I wanted to stay where I was because it was very safe. It was the safest, most secure home of my life and where we raised our kids. And when we moved here, I really had a terrible transition. But now that we're sort of here, the barn is done. We are kind of getting through more of the house renovations. I'm feeling a little bit more settled, but the fact that we're here and two of our kids are going to have babies and they live in the area, that is very exciting to me. Four of our adult kids moved to this area. So, that was part of the reason of moving back to this area. So, that's really the icing on the cake. And let's see. Uh, so Garden of Quilts is in Lehi, Utah at Thanksgiving Point. And Debbie Webb says, would you please post the details about to sign up for Utah? Thank you. Yes, I will. There's, I'll get you the link, Debbie. And then Roger says, Faith has been making burp rags for the new babies. Oh, good. Thank you, Faith. Yes. So, I don't know what the theme of the nursery is for the second baby, but the first baby, they did like everything in like kind of creams and that sort of color. But they did a tree scene, like a bunch of pine trees and different things on the wall. And I am making a lumberjack quilt. So my son, he's a really hard worker and he's always doing stuff. And anyway, one Christmas he got a bunch of flannels and some work boots, and so his brother started teasing him and calling him a lumberjack, and he was kind of looking like one, except for he's like the Fabio version because he has this really long blonde hair, and um, when he's not wearing it in a ponytail, he really does look like Fabio, and so they started calling him a lumberjack. And so as soon as I knew before they got married, they said, after we get married, we're going to start trying for a baby on the honeymoon and, try to have a baby right away. And so before they got married, I found that lumberjack quilt and I was going to buy it and I would um, make that quilt for the baby just because even in their wedding vows, he, you know, she mentioned him being a lumberjack or something. So that's sort of the theme for that. And then the other couple have not decided yet. They just made it first through their first trimester. So that's why we announced it on Friday. So we've been waiting kind of to announce because we wanted to make sure that everything was kind of further along, but everybody's over the moon. So, and Ellie says, I see you have a split AC system on the wall behind you. I'm thinking of putting that in my quilt studio. Do you like it? Yes. So I had one in my first studio in Ephrata where I lived before, and it was amazing. It worked perfectly. We just had like a one car garage, which is where I had set up all my stuff. So we just had a one split unit. And I know this one, you usually don't see it like in my YouTube videos or anything, but on the live ones, I don't have a lot of control over the camera stuff. But in this pink barn, we have a 5-head unit. So we have this one for this room, we have one for upstairs, and then 3 in the main room. And I really only need 2 in the main room. We probably could have gotten away with less than 5. Like we probably could have done 4. But I would say the only thing that is kind of they work great. I don't have a problem with them. The only thing that is kind of an issue, I think, as far as like, I don't know if I would want it in my house. And I'll say because they're all on one main unit. So you can't have air conditioning on upstairs and then heat downstairs or vice versa. All of the units have to be on heat or cool. They have to be on the same thing. They can't be on one or the other. So in the barn, it's fine. I, you know, am not having to do a lot. It gets really hot upstairs in the loft. And so we would like to maybe sometimes have the AC on up there and then it could be fine down here. But um that would be the only thing. So I don't know if I would want it to be in my home, but in the barn for a studio it works great. And we actually are putting another one. We bought another one to put in our garage because my husband just redid our garage and he had to rewire everything because of the plans that we have for that space. And there's like a mud room behind our garage. Anyways, I have a freeze dryer in there, so he had to wire all of that in for that to work. And so we're putting a mini split in there because it has to be temperature controlled to run your freeze dryer. So we'll be doing that as well. So it's great for those single room things or a small area, a shop, something like that. But I think, we have a 3-level house. So the basement usually stays pretty cool no matter what. So we wouldn't want the air conditioning ever on in there. But then the upstairs will get up pretty warm and the main level, could fluctuate pretty easily. And Ellie says, my quilt studio is our boat garage, so it would work well. Good to know. Oh yeah, it will work really well. We had it in our other garage too. And it was I did have to replace it after a certain amount of time, but um I can't remember how long it lasted, maybe 12 years or 13 years. But um I think things have changed since then. And that area was much more it was so hot and he rated like the last summer that we left, it was 117 degrees on the highest. And so we had to run the air conditioning a lot in that studio and keeping it cool and I don't know that there was even insulation in that room, in that garage. So it probably just didn't do well. But here my husband put insulation everywhere. We took down all of the plywood walls. We put insulation in the ceiling, in the walls, everything. So it stays pretty moderate in here. The loft is the only thing that really gets kind of hot regularly. So yeah, that is what we have going on. So other than that, this week, because I'm going to be gone for 2 days, doing a guild event, then I have some company coming from out of town, so I don't know how much I'm going to get done this week actually. So Monday motivation, I am working in between, but I am very excited because in the next couple of days, I'll be showing you the new improved face of the barn. My husband started after the open house last year. He started building the like portico over the porch and or in the front doors, and that is almost done. He got sidetracked in the fall with other things, so he had started it, but he didn't finish it. So he just has to put the last coat of paint on this evening, and then he'll put the hooks in for my hanging flower baskets because that is of utmost importance. And he's hanging my lights. We have some uh, of the outdoor lights hanging on our front porch because we have kind of a wraparound porch on our house. And so he said, I think he really likes those lights too because I put those in those first year and he was like kind of like, do we have to do this? But they really do add something comforting about our house. I love pulling up and seeing those lights on no matter what time of year it is, and I think he does too. So he said, "You should put those lights on the porch as well." And I said, "Yeah, I think so." So we got some of those lights, and so he'll put those up tonight, hopefully. And I decided to get some for this side because I don't go to the front of the barn a lot. I mean, I do because I have to load my car and I park out there in front of the barn because I have to put stuff in and out of the car all the time. But for the most part, when I'm just doing my daily work, I go from the side door to our porch. So I just thought, I think I need some lights on that side too, just because that's the one that I see the most. And I think that that will just, make me feel better. So he'll get those hung this week as well. So I'll be showing you progress photos. And then, so that's really the last thing that we need to do to the barn. But I was hoping he could build like another little overhang portico thing on the side door this summer, but he has too many projects going. So maybe next year we will get that part done. So we're hoping to get that overhang done next year. And then I'm contemplating a sidewalk from the barn to the house in some fashion through the yard, just because there's already a trail there. It might be nice to have that there, but we'll see kind of what happens. But so that's the last thing that we'll add to the barn, and then it'll be done, and I feel good about that. And Ellie says, "Isn't it great to have hubbies who can do everything?" Yes, he can do a whole lot of things. He's very talented and he's really good at figuring things out because we've never done any renovation projects this big, honestly. And when we get stuck, we just look on YouTube and we figure it out. And he's really good about that sort of thing. Like, and if he doesn't know, he can ask his stepdad. And or we have so many people around us who um know, things that we don't know. But yeah, that we've learned some lessons along the way. Obviously, one thing that I really regret about the barn is that it had the middle section of concrete when we got here, and so we just filled in the areas where it was dirt floors for the horse stalls. And I really kind of wish we would have just um, taken all of that concrete out. It would have taken some time. Um, but that, and we tried to repair and fill in the cracks and do all that, but it's like really hard to clean. It was really hard. Like it's kind of just difficult. And I kind of wish we would have just done that and then we would have like really nice floors. But so we're learning lessons along the way. It's fine. Nothing, earth shattering. The building is structurally sound and all of those things. So that's good. Okay, thanks, Faith. Love you too. So, all right. Let's see where. Okay, so we're at like about 45 minutes. And so I think it's time to sign off. I have to get a bunch of stuff ready for this evening and kind of get some stuff cleaned up. And I want to uh, get everything kind of prepped because I have some more planting to do outside in the garden. I'm almost done. It's taking me a long time. I kind of got sidetracked from some stuff because I usually like to have all of it done by the end of May. But anyway, so I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope that you say yes because that is the Monday motivation, and then all of the rest will fall into place. I practice that. I think we have to stretch and grow, and I think we can be surprised by all of the things that happen when we just give a simple word like yes, right? So, thanks for joining me in the Pink Barn. I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday. Okay, bye.